Welcome back to the show, and many thanks for staying with us. Like I said, Chukwemeka is the Executive Director for the African Network for Peace Building. Wanepi joins me now in the studio. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And many thanks for your time here on the Pulse. Now, let's look at this situation. To what extent should people be worried about this phenomenon? Would you say that we should indeed be worried that it will create a culture of impunity? Or should we say that, well, if a party has created this group, or this group has been created within a party, then it is well within their powers to control them? So really, there's nothing to be worried about.
I think we can lay what we consider to be the trajectory, and then what we also consider to be the long-term effect on the society. And then the political actors can make their choices, but without saying that we did not voice out our opinion. The first thing I want to lay as a background is that the court and the law does not operate within the realms of emotions and truth.
Okay.
The court is guided by evidence and the position of the law. And to that extent, we accept wholeheartedly the decision of the court, because the society is actually composed and configured to operate within the ambit of the law. And to that extent, except anybody wants to make any further
take further legal actions?
Yeah, to that extent, for me, the case is closed in terms of those individuals.
The lawyers, the legal brains have said that they've just been discharged and not acquitted. So there's a possibility of a rearrest, which is what the minority is calling for.
Those are for the lawyers. Okay. I'll talk about my area. But for now, I'm aware that the law does not operate within the emotions of people or is within the truth, even if it is truth, within your context of truth. The court is guided by evidence and the position of the law. However, I think that I'm a bit worried about the rise of these so-called vigilante groups. In the first place, I beg to disagree that they are vigilante groups.
Okay.
Most African societies have vigilante groups that are community-driven, that are even registered within the laws of the land.
Okay.
And to that extent, they help the police, whose statutory duty is to keep law and order, in maintaining community peace.
Okay.
But these are, in my opinion, whether rightly or wrongly, or even if not at the moment, they have potentials of a militia group.
Okay, so you would rather call them a militia group and not a vigilante group?
Yes, defined so, because if a group of young men are operating with arms and they are not recognized by the state, they are not registered within the law, as far as I'm concerned, is an illegal group. And that's the way militia groups operate. Okay. And for me, coming from a country where we've seen the effects, to the extent that if you look at the history of the formation of the Niger Delta Force, the freedom fighters, whatever name they go by, they started as support group to politicians.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter whether it is the party in power today or whether it's the party in power yesterday. The truth of the matter is that it gets to a point when the political actors, the government itself, can no longer manage their growth, can no longer manage even the successes they feel they have garnered from such group. And to that extent, they also turn and become a threat to both the society, the political actors, and the larger region and the society. So, the last administration made an attempt. I didn't think that was strong enough to call for the disbanding of these groups. Yeah. Okay? I feel that the current administration should take a step further. It is important that political actors that manage the affairs of the state are the first to show sign of confidence in the state institutions. And to that effect, and to that extent, they should show confidence in the ability of the police to guide everybody. If the police is lacking in equipment, we should rather invest in strengthening the police to protect everybody.
Do you feel that this case on our hand at the moment has anything to do with lack of resources to the police?
I doubt seriously, but I'm saying that if the politicians are not confident in the ability of the police to provide everybody, including themselves, security, then it is a negation of what they are mandated to do. The social contract theory is very clear on what the political actors are supposed to do. We submit our affair in the hands of the politicians through a mandate to protect us. One of the institutions saddled with that responsibility that the politicians and the political actors are supposed to provide all necessary tools to provide protection for everybody is the police. Okay? Now, if there is more faith in an alternative security provider, then it is a demonstration of lack of confidence in the state the politicians are managing.
It's very idealistic to say that, but the reality is that we've seen how politicians, the relationship between politicians, government, and the police have been in the past, and you can say that as well for Nigeria, which you referred to. You realize that the opposition parties depend on these people that they put together for their own protection, and it's a cycle. It's a cycle. Is there any way that that cycle can be broken, because it is established and the opposition will appear to lose confidence in the police? It appears to be a cycle that is established that isn't going to be broken anytime soon.
I know how the cycle is broken. The cycle is broken when the group is so sophisticated that they turn and become the enemy of those who empower them. That's the way the cycle is broken. Today, those who armed the initial group of the youths that later transformed itself to Boko Haram are the target of Boko Haram. And I don't think that that's the cycle. And that's the direction that Ghana wants to go. So at the moment, they seem very comfortable. Everybody is enjoying. But at the end of the day, the groups are developing skills. The question we want to throw back to the politicians is, what kind of skills are they developing? They are developing the skills of violence. They are demonstrating the skills of the use of arms and ammunition. Now, let's assume it gets to a point when everybody now have confidence in the state. What kind of transfer of skills will they have? That's the question. I've had times without number in this region, and I think I have traveled a lot within the region and worked a lot in the region to understand this. So many times, these groups are important during elections. They are visible during elections. They are almost worshipped during elections. At the end of the context, what happens is that politicians, because of the zero-sum game, share the peck of politics. Unfortunately, more than 90% of these groups are not beneficiaries of the peck. Why? They do not have the requisite qualification to be given. Okay? So, until the next cycle of election, they either feed on the fringe of the politicians or completely ignored. In some cases, they are not completely ignored, but their expectations are higher than what the state or the government can offer openly and account for. Okay? So to that extent, there is a bit of disenchantment amongst the group. And within that period, some of them transfer their skills to armed robbery. Because that's the skill they have, the skills of violence. It increases domestic violence when they get frustrated, when they don't feel that kind of recognition. Okay? They go on demonstration thinking that it is still that political era. Meanwhile, the politicians have moved on. It is now governance they are focusing on rather than election.
Some have become governors, some are governing, some are in opposition.
Exactly. So, but they've moved on. Okay? And it's even worse for those in opposition because there is even nothing to offer them.
Yeah.
So the best they can do is to find a way to manage them until the next cycle of election.
Wouldn't you call what is happening a management of this group? Because that's what it appears to be. The opposition, of course, has accused the government of interfering in the in the judiciary process. But that you would say you wouldn't want to go into that. But then, when you hear some of the utterances of the members of this group, they've said at a point that they were told that this was just a formality. Going to court was just a formality, and that they would be set free. And that is why they went in to free their people when they were not freed as they thought that they would be. Wouldn't you say that that is some kind of management of the group?
You know, the Ghanaian political milieu is very interesting. If you're not in power, anything the government in power does is viewed from a different prism. If you're in power, you become the saint. If you're not in power, so I would want to agree that there is independence of the judiciary. And I know that in this country, there are very smart lawyers. The legal profession in this country is highly revered. So to that extent, whether it is good case or bad case, the judges made their decision. I do not want to agree that it is on the basis of interference of the states that the judges were influenced to make their decision. I want to still believe that it is within the provisions of the law and the evidence before the judges. And I am happy to say that anywhere. You know, so I don't want to have a conjecture of what might seem to be an interference of the state, just because it could have been any other way.
But from the submission that you've made earlier, we should clearly be worried about this phenomenon. What would be your advice if you were, I mean, you are an expert in this area. If you were to advise government, say, what to do, what would you say?
My advice is that a lot of mistakes have been made already. The politicians have hobnobbed with a group they should not ab initio have hobnobbed with. But let's not also disband totally without reinventing, so that we don't create a menace for the society. So the politicians need to quickly think across party lines, because this is not a government of the day's problem. The opposition, the current opposition, had the same type of group. So it cuts across all the political actors. So my advice is that they need to sit down and reinvent this group. What are they capable of doing other than what they are doing at the moment? We need to strategically place them so, and then begin a deconstruction process of their mindsets. Otherwise, it will lead to a situation. And don't forget, we are in an era that nobody is sure of tomorrow. We are in era of violent extremism. We are in era of cyber crimes. We are in era of all piracy and all sorts of crime that exist out there. So if we don't reinvent them and say we have chased them away, they are now illegal, that may create further menace for the society, including the politicians themselves. But if we are strategic enough to reinvent their energy, probably we may be getting out of the woods.
I see. Do you see that happening? I'm sure you've been dealing with a lot of security experts as well here in this country as one. Do you see that as a possibility?
There are best practices.
And I'm asking this because there have been calls. Kodeo, for instance, election observers have gone together and said that let's disband this group. And they say they engage these politicians who agreed. But then you go to Parliament, for instance, and you hear people were expecting to hear, you know, some sort of strong comment, if you like, from the Minister of National Security. And he says that, well, they are not registered. So if you're calling for a disbandment, I'm wondering what you think of that. He says if you're calling for a disbandment, there are no registered groups to be disbanded in the first place.
Well, those may be within the semantics. But we all know, it's common sense, that there are groups called Azoka Boys, there are groups called Delta Forces. These are common sense. They exist. Okay. So we can continue to deny, we can continue to argue, and they do not exist. But I've just given an example coming from my own country. And the same country I'm coming from, there are best practices. The men group in the Niger Delta, they have been reinvented to an extent. Okay. Of course, you can argue that most other groups are coming up, but such best practice can be adopted. I do not recommend that you just disband, arrest, prosecute, and jail. You might be increasing the menace. Okay. I think what is important is to sit down. It doesn't matter the political party in power. to sit down across the aisle and discuss what do we do with this group is very important.
Do you see that happening?
I have given reason why it should happen.
Yes, but do you see, that's why I said, that's why I premised it by saying that you have been working with these people.
I want to believe that there is enough political will within the political corridor
you want to believe.
Do that. I want to believe.
Is it there?
That's my belief. Let them now disappoint me by not living up to this standard. But I believe that there is enough political will in the political corridor to do that, especially that I've talked about the effects, and I've talked about when the cycle is broken. The cycle is broken when they begin to get stronger than the state. It has happened in several places.
I see. It's interesting. How much time do we have, would you say? If we were to break the cycle, like you say, instead of wait till we cannot break them.
Yesterday. The time we have is at yesterday. The other time we have is now.
So basically, there's no time.
There's no time.
If anything has to happen, it has to happen now.
It would have happened yesterday. The other time is now.
Is OneUp in any engagement to foster this kind of result that we are anticipating?
Don't forget that OneUp is a peace-building organization.
Right.
We're not a peacekeeping organization. We do not replace the state. We do not replace the police. We do not replace the army. So ours is to say, based on our analysis and based on what has happened around the sub-region, this is where we see this heading to. And we want to say it very loudly, and we'll continue to say it very loudly. It is the prerogative of the state to protect the citizens. And one way to protect the citizens is to ensure that all citizens are under the law. The law provides for the police service in Ghana to protect every human being. If the police is lacking in number, let's increase them. There is no reason why some of these boys should not go into police if they qualify. If the police is lacking in capacity, let's increase their capacity. Invest more money in them than in illegal groups. If the police is lacking in tools, let's increase their tools. That way, everybody is under the law.
Has the OneUp engaged?
We have continued to engage, whether it is today's government or yesterday's government. We have continued to engage the ministries of interior, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, your final words, sir.
The media should take it off from here. That's my final word.
The media should take it off.
Echo what we have said as loud as you can. You are also seeing the effects. But I want to put on record that whether we call it vigilante groups, we call it militia, we call it support group. I've also heard people call it security support group. In other words, they are just supporting whatever name it goes by. The end point is usually not the best for all of us, including those that at the moment feel they are protected by them.
Since you mentioned the media, let me bring you into that conversation about the media. What are your own assessments? What is OneUp's assessment of how the media has covered this issue?
I think fair enough. It is the same standard the media have used in the past government that they have used in this current government. So it doesn't matter who likes it. It's the same way with OneUp. So when we speak about the past government, it's either they say we are with the government or we are outside the government. The most important thing is that the principles and the values are constant.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you so much for coming into the studio. Chukwemeka is the executive director for OneUp, and we've been engaging him on this matter. I mean, very insightful revelations he makes here about the situation in Nigeria and how that compares to what is happening here. How much time do we have as politicians, as a country, to bring the politicians together to deal with this issue? He says we've actually run out of time. If there is anything that has to be done, it has to be done, and it has to be done now. Well, away from security issues and the implications of Delta forces, etc., let's move to a rather disturbing story about housing. Unlikely parents, busy streets, makeshift bedrooms. Even during the day, people are seen sleeping on pedestrian lanes and on road medians, not only causing discomfort to pedestrians, but also exposing themselves to the danger of being run over by moving vehicles. That's the situation in most parts of Accra, and it's painting a national picture of housing crisis. In cases where accommodation is available, it is priced beyond the means of average Ghanaians, or where they plan to build their own. Litigation over land and high cost of materials make it difficult, if not impossible. Today we're beginning a broader national conversation on the availability, affordability and safety of accommodation for the citizenry. Let's start from the street. Here are some Ghanaians sharing their views on their accommodation challenges.
It has a lot of effects on my rent, because my salary is not so much in Ghana here. And rent, they are taking 2 years advance, which is consuming your salary. I think they need to just follow the rent law in Ghana. That's what the government should do. They should enforce the rent laws. If it's 6 months rent or if it's monthly rent, they have to enforce that every landlord will register so that they will use the rent laws to govern.
I think the rent that normally the landlords collect is too high for some Ghanaians, especially the low-income earners. So in my honest opinion, if the government can just sit down or set up and at least make some rules that, for instance, within 6 months, all landlords or landladies can just take within 6 months advance instead of the 1 year or the 2 years.
My rent is too high for me, and I'm earning low pay. So after the moon dies, if I take the rent out of my pay, it's very scarce, and I can't cope with the salary that I'm receiving. So I want the government to look at it second time.
In fact, just last month I had to pay 4,800 for 2 years for some ghetto that I think doesn't deserve the amount. In fact, it's affecting us so much that it's very difficult gathering to the tune of 4,800, considering the hardships that we are in Ghana here. So I think it would be nice for the government to come in to regulate the way the landlords collect the rent. If 3 months, it will help us. But for it to gather up to the 2 years, it's become very, very tough.
My rent is so expensive. Nowadays in Ghana, there's no buying and selling anywhere. I sell laptops and phones. The business is so low and things are not going on well. I don't have any money to rent. When my rent dies, I'm not sure I can get any money to pay for it.
As for rent in Ghana, if I speak about it right now, 100 times nothing could do about it, because I learned, I think last year they were talking about we should avoid paying, let's say 2 years, 3 years. We should bring it down, let's say 6 months. But the landlord, when you ask them, say, are you the one build a house for me and all that?
Now the cost of the rent is very high. And when we see things, the government is saying is going to bring some laws so that everybody will pay monthly. But since then, we haven't seen anything better. And people are paying 2 years, 3 years advance. Not all of them can afford to pay such an amount. So you can see most of our youth, young boys, are sleeping outside.
Government should put its eye on, especially where these big shops are, like Circle, Mokola, Abosoka. All the Nigerians are taking the shops. You see, when Ghana man go for that shop, instead of the shop will be given to you a month, 200 Ghana cedis. But when a Nigerian man comes, they will tell him 800 Ghana cedis a month. So they always take those shops, those Nigerians. We the Ghanaians, we are in the system standstill. Then you say we'll be condemning the government.
In a rent issue here in Ghana, it's a bit difficult to us being Nigerians. You know, in our side we do pay for a year advance, but here some landlords do collect 2 years, 3 years, and you know, most of us that came new, we don't have such money to afford such price. And apart from that, some people will say they are the agents, they will say 20%, you know, all those kind of things. So it's a big challenge to us.
So if there should be a kind of, a body of landlord, there should be a fixed price that maybe the government should look into it. Maybe the rent duration might be maybe 6 months to 1 year, but here in Ghana, you see people who might be paying 1 million. Then they'll times it like 3 years. It's fucking expensive, you understand? So my advice to the government is they should put eye to it, that there should be a board, a kind of board of landlords and tenants.
So what would be the intervention? We'll hear from the Deputy Works and Housing Minister and other stakeholders who have joined efforts to provide decent and affordable housing for all Ghanaians. They were at the Multi-TV Habitat Fair launched in Accra today. Details of that event here shortly, but we can take a look at the policy that is expected to deal with the housing challenge in Ghana. It's been 2 years since it was launched, but it's yet to be implemented. The tenants' union are unhappy about the situation and have petitioned the Works and Housing Minister yesterday. Here's their General Secretary, Frederick Opoku, speaking to my colleague Latif Idris after filing that petition.
Government in their manifestos and whatever they say, and in the policy, the lack of access to land, credits, the material, building materials are all costly. And developers have been lamenting all the time. And God being so good, it has been captured in that national housing policy that if government is set to implement that policy, trust me, all these things will come out. Government can have the frameworks, the plan. Okay, we are setting more industries. People have been promising, and we have to set up an industry or companies that can actually provide and, as it were, produce
Well, apologies for that technical hitch there. So here in Accra, the experts met at the Multi-TV Habitat Fair launch. Here are excerpts.
The importance of our homes to us as individuals cannot be overemphasized. To many, it is more than just a roof over our heads and a place to live and rest. Our homes mean much more to us than just shelter. It is the center of the most important relationships that evolves in our lives. It is the place where we raise our families, receive our friends and our neighbors. Thus, having a home is a basic human right, which allows us to lead a happy and fulfilling life. Although the housing industry is growing into a vibrant one, it is also faced with a lot of challenges that makes home ownership very complex and an expensive venture for most of our citizens. The reasons for this state of affairs are not difficult to find. I can see a lot of beautiful high-rise pictures over there. But the question to ask yourself is how many of us can afford it? There are a lot of quality, nice, high-rise buildings all over the place as you drive around Roman Ridge, Cantonments, Laboni, name it, looking for buyers. If you are not an expatriate, if you are coming from the developed country, how many of us can afford to buy or rent such high-quality housing units? So as we are here today, let's begin to brainstorm, dialogue, exchange ideas, and see how best together we can all come out with strategies to put up affordable quality housing projects for Ghanaians. It is the MPP vision to use an appropriate mix of public policy and public-private investments to deliver quality, affordable social housing and private housing solutions that meet the needs and financial capacity of the ordinary Ghanaian. You will agree with me that by international standards, you aren't even supposed to pay more than 30% of your income as mortgage. So let's be thinking about that. There are a lot of housing units around looking for buyers, as I said earlier on. And it is the government's vision to offer tax incentives to local real estate developers, suppliers of building materials in order to reduce costs of building. The MPP government has abolished the 5% VAT on real estate sales and seeks to identify and establish land banks with infrastructure such as roads, drainage, water, and power for the development of affordable housing units on public-private partnerships. The government also seeks to implement a national policy requiring every public building, including new homes, to install solar panels. We cannot do away with solar panels for now, even though we'll be looking at other areas in order to reduce long-term cost of ownership. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, increasing population growth and rapid urbanization has also made housing a major challenge in many of our cities within the housing sector. As Mordecai said, and Steady Realities also iterated that we have over 1.7 million housing deficits. Society is not static, it is dynamic. And by this time, it's even grown beyond 1.7 million. So what efforts are we making to ensure that we bridge the gap? The MPP government started affordable housing projects in 2005. They were able to reach out to 5 regions, and it is the intention of the current administration to move on to the other 5 regions of Ghana. The available statistics shows that the current annual supply of housing in Ghana is about 45,000 housing units. 90% of this is supplied by the private sector. It is significant to know that these units are targeted at the middle and high income group, and this calls for interventional policies which will favor those in the low income brackets. Research have also shown that about 35% of Ghanaians can afford the quality, expensive housing units. About 50% may be able to afford the average cost of, average housing units. But the real people that we are looking at, those below the ladder, the low-income earners, that about 15% of our Ghanaian population cannot afford. They are the people living in the slums, living in kiosks. People are living in containers. I have personally investigated, had a chat with them. And some are paying about 10 or 15 Ghana cedis a week whilst living in that container. Some are paying 60 Ghana cedis every month. And they are hoping that this administration will support them with a real affordable social housing units.
All right, that is Frida Prempe, Deputy Minister for Works and Housing. There in the studio with me is Mordecai Kwashi. He's Head of Sales at Multimedia, and they are the brains behind the MNC Properties Multi-TV Habitats Fair. Today, you're welcome, sir, to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's look at the extent to which this Habitat Fair that you held today helps deal with the increasing housing deficits that we have in this country.
You know, the Habitat Fair mainly is a one-stop shop for everything that has to do with housing. Okay. So the Habitat Fair deals with land acquisition all the way through to the building, moving, and house warming, the whole thing. Okay. And therefore, it actually brings one place where everybody can come and people can plan about housing, people can see what building materials are available, people can then make the decisions, long-term decisions concerning housing and access to housing. Okay, and sometimes people have complained about affordability, even though some people will call it affordable housing, etc. People will say that, well, what is affordable to Mordecai, since he's a big man, it's not affordable for me. Yes. So did it tackle the issue of affordability, and how did they come up? Yes, you know, the issue of affordability is tackled in a number of ways. One is that building materials, innovative and affordable and low-cost building materials. Indeed, this morning in the Deputy Minister's speech, she talked about ways that the government was going to help to make things affordable by public-private partnerships. Government was going to go into rental housing and stuff like that. Okay. This is how affordability is going to be handled. But specifically to the Habitat Fair, because we are bringing such a wide range of people there, you would find any kind of house you want, from all the way from expensive to inexpensive housing. Indeed, you would even get land, just you know, people who are just selling land or people who are selling the building materials. So even if you don't want to buy a house and you want to just start your own, you have everything. You would even find there the people who can assist you with the financial solutions that you require to be able to start.
Well, now that you've mentioned it, let's get into the Habitat Fair a bit more. Shall we know who are on the bill and when is it? How is it going to be like, etc., so that people can follow and they can get answers to their questions?
This year's Habitat Fair, the headline sponsor, headline partner is MNC Properties. Okay, they are a high-end.
As in their houses are very expensive.
Yes, they actually sell houses both in Dubai and in Ghana. And then we also have Setpi Realty. Who have done a very big, very nice development in the Tema area. We also have sponsors like Wilkins Engineering, who are into solar technology. We have Elegant Homes, JL Properties, Caspong Group, and a number of them. We have a wide range. These, I'm even talking about sponsors only. But we're now in the process of registering exhibitors, and you would find that when we have the list of exhibitors, we would be advertising so that the public would know the full range of services that are going to be on display at this year's Habitat Fair. But this year's Habitat Fair is not one, it's a series of fairs. The first fair is coming off at the Achimota Mall. In June. And the next one is coming off at the West Hills Mall in July. And the main thing is coming off at the Accra International Conference Center in August. And then we're doing a version in Kumasi in October.
So June, May, and
June, July, August.
And
August and October in Kumasi.
Do we have dates?
Yes.
So that,
Yes,
so which dates in June?
In June we have 24th.
So we're looking at the Achimota Mall. For
24th
24th of June. So just in case you're looking to build your own house, you know, own a house, the house going to mortgage, etc. Achimota Mall is where you want to be on the 24th of June. West Hills Mall is where you want to look out for in July. And then the International Conference Center is where you want to look out for in August. But we'll be updating you subsequently on all of that. But if people want to go on, you know, look for a mortgage, are you bringing people who will talk about all of these and advise?
A lot of financial services companies, HFC and so many others who would be there. One key thing is, like I said, people who would be there to help you to take financial decisions. Having a house, owning a house is basically a financial decision. It's one of the biggest financial decisions most people will have to make in a lifetime. So yes, there will be people there to help you.
I'm giving you the chance to make a promise or make a promise to the people who you are expecting to see at this Habitat Fair and what they will gain if they have to, you know, let go of everything that they have to do and come there.
Listen, guys, come to the Habitat Fairs. I say fairs because there are a number of them. Make sure you come to all of them because it's going to get better as we go along. This year's Habitat promises to have more than any other. We have a wider range of exhibitors than we've ever had. And we are expecting to put on also a good show by way of entertainment to also sponsor to entertain.
Spice it up, right?
Yes. So please make sure we're giving you ample time now. Plan for it. June, July, August, and in Kumasi, if you are listening to us from there, October.
So you're looking out for those dates and you want to come for that financial advice that you need. Owning a house is actually very good. And you did hear some of the people. There's a lot of despair about how people can't have their peace of mind because they don't own their houses. Well, this is a chance for you put together by Multi TV just so you could have, you know, your peace of mind, own your own house and hit your chest sometimes. Thank you very much, sir, for coming.
Thank you
Mordecai Kwashi is head of sales at Multimedia, and he was here to talk about the MNC Properties Multi TV Habitat Fair, slated for 24th of June at the Achimota Mall. and July at the West Hills Mall, and August in at the conference center. Like I said, we'll be updating you as we move along. But do make a date, write it down in your diary or put it on your phone. Give it a reminder just so you don't forget.